Paul Leith, I'm based in Carlisle, and each day I wake up wanting to do something. I do any kind of art, visual art, yes.
My name is Lydia Leith and I'm based in Carlisle. I do creative design work, which can be varied from graphic design, logos, illustration, to murals, product design. Usually I am inspired from everyday life. I like to try and make things simplified and colourful.
My name's Sophie Jarzyna. I'm based in Mccuaig, just outside Langholm, and I have entered the world of ceramics. I like how long the ceramics can be around for. It's a permanent material, so the idea of making something really nice that will be around for generations is quite inspiring to me.
So we took some inspiration from the history and present day of the town, and just inspiration took from the children that we worked with. We did a workshop with the local school children here in Langholm. That was all to do with painting, drawing, collage, and just coming up with ideas of what the town means to them.
We gave them kind of free rein on the subject of culture, local culture. It was really nice actually. We gave them a kind of template of the crest, and we talked about what symbols Langholm has already, but asked them what they would like to do with the crest, what symbols were important to them. I think the children were really excited to be involved in something that the whole town were going to get to see.
Well, murals have a good impact if, when a town is newly built and everything's lovely, that's fine, but after 50 or 100 or a couple of hundred years, things start to look run down and people say we want to make it look nicer.
I think any space that allows people of all ages, but particularly the youth, a space where they can express themselves and explore different ideas, I think is essential really and really exciting for our town to have. Because the more ideas, the more opportunities, the better really for everyone.
The first one I saw in 67 or 8 was the Beatles shop, because I used to walk home that way, and every night I'd walk home and I could see them painting the Beatles shop. But in general, there's more and more of them around the world. It's a growing thing.
Well, I think we're kind of used to seeing things happening in big cities like London and Manchester and places like that. But actually, if you look a bit further, there's creative people everywhere, so it's nice to celebrate that and show things can happen everywhere, not just the main towns.
I am Agnes Jones. I'm based in Glasgow, and I'm an artist blacksmith, and I make kind of linear sculptural pieces. Sometimes they can be used as practical objects, so kind of gates and railings, but sometimes they're much more sculptural. Just basically anything made out of steel is what I do. I tend to do a lot of drawing, and then I produce that in metalwork. I love things that you can draw in a linear way. I'm doing quite a lot of human figures at the moment. Recent projects have included things that are very much to do with flowers and nature and things like that. So they're quite beautiful. And another thing that inspires me is the steel itself, because it is this incredible material that is so solid and rigid, but then you heat it up and you can bend it into any shape, and then it cools down and becomes this really, really solid thing again. The workshop took place in Langholm Primary School. It was really exciting to get lots of really young people involved. We drew with a mixture of paint and pipe cleaners, and what I noticed most was kind of their excitement to use materials in ways that I hadn't really thought of. It was just amazing to see them just using things in a completely exciting and different way. I think the things that I took from it were really trying to maybe play with it a little bit more, because they clearly just wanted to have fun with the materials that we had provided them with. I was reading a lot of Hugh McDermott poetry, and there were a few lines that stuck with me. The Little White Rose of Scotland, it was so evocative of the kind of feelings he obviously had about Scotland. The symbol of Scottishness, this beautiful and scented rose, and it just made me immediately realise that you could make a very beautiful kind of flowing idea on the side of a building. I was really interested in looking at Hugh McDermott, but I suppose in a slightly different way to the memorial monument thing that he already has. I realised that it's another thing in metal, but it was just sort of a way of trying to bring in maybe some of the nature that surrounds Langham. I think murals in public space and public art in general are a really good way of having a town define itself to the outside world. It kind of allows somewhere like Langham to bring out the things that it's proud of. And because public art and murals make a space nicer to be in, just because there are things to look at, and it shows that people care about their area, and I think it makes people take pride in their surroundings. So I think public art tends to energise spaces. Obviously I'm very biased, but I think that artists have a huge role to play within every community, and I think arts organisations energise spaces as well. They kind of take disparate artists and people and bring them together. They kind of bring ideas together and allow people to engage in projects in a way that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. It's a wonderful thing to have in Langham.
Hi, my name is Lucy MacLeod. I'm creative director of OutPost Arts, and I'm also one of the Mural Stories artists, creating 5 murals in and around Langham High Street. My practice is drawing based. I did used to be a painter, so I still have a really painterly approach to my work. But because I've been a commercial illustrator as well, I have a kind of graphic edge to my work, to a kind of graphic sensibility, particularly like collage as well, so like creating textures and patterns and then playing with figures on the page as well. So the kind of things that inspire me to create my work, it depends what kind of work I'm doing. When I'm doing fashion illustration, obviously I have specific references, but for my own personal work, I'm very influenced by narrative, some kind of real narrative, so based on kind of like factual history, and sometimes that's a starting point for me, and then I'll create a kind of narrative of my own around that. I'm particularly interested in females from history as well, and kind of iconic figures, and sometimes they're imagined and sometimes they're real. Well, the main theme that I chose was the textile history, but from the angle of the people involved, like the workers. There's quite a few kind of famous or well-known figures from Langham, but actually people that built Langham were just the workers in the mills, you know. That's what made Langham a thriving industrial mill town, known for its amazing textiles. That's the average person who, you know, skilled worker who worked in the mill. So I wanted to celebrate those people and think about some of the motifs as well, and some of the symbols involved in the textile mills, and bring that through and make something quite visually interesting to look at as well. So for my research, we have a wealth of local knowledge, key individuals who are kind of historians. So that was my starting point, just to get a bit of a lead. So I started by talking to local historians and then looking at some of the archives as well. There's a great photo archive. The mural design will be somewhat fictional because those photographic archives just don't really exist in a way that could be meaningfully used. But it's certainly been really, really useful to have that archive as well. So my particular workshop was at Langholm Academy, and we held the workshop with S1s to S3s. We'd already kind of interacted with S1s to S3s before in lots of other projects, so they kind of knew who we were, and they were immediately really open to the brief that we gave them. And it was purposefully quite an expressive and bold brief where we gave them like really long pieces of paper, and we asked them to draw with scissors in a kind of Matisse style, because he's been such an influence to me. So I hope to pool some of their brilliant work that they did, and it didn't take long before they were really uninhibited in creating amazing, bold collage pieces. So I fully intend to take some of those shapes and the colours into the two murals that I'll be creating on Langham High Street. A place like Langham has suffered from deindustrialisation and the way that the economy's changed, and we now look to foreign factories for supplying our textiles mainly. So towns like Langham need to find new purpose and new identities, and I think creatives have always been very good at communicating new things and finding creative solutions for like creative placemaking. And something like a mural project is an immediate kind of something really